Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Coach the Coach Radio. Brought to you by the Business RadioX Ambassador Program, the no-cost business development strategy for coaches who want to spend more time serving local business clients and less time selling them. Go to brxambassador.com to learn more. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Coach the Coach Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today we have with us Ronee Andersen with Coaching and Consulting by Ronee. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Lee. I'm honored to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Well, I'm excited to learn what you're up to. Tell us a little bit about your practice. How are you serving folks?
So I work and focus mainly on small business owners. I focus on helping them with their employees, leadership development, emotional intelligence, and that. I was in human resources for 20 years and really like to leverage human capital so that it can increase the owner's bottom line.
So now small business means different things to different people. Like a small business could be a one-person solopreneur, but it could be also, according to the government, I think it's like 500 people working there. So how do you define small business?
Yeah, good question. For me, it's generally someone that has at least 50 to 100 employees. So since, again, my focus is on leadership in that, it's, having somebody that just has one employee or just a couple of employees probably wouldn't be as good a fit for me as a company that has more employees. If you get back to the 50 or 100 employees.
So now when a company has that many employees, 50 to 100, what kind of challenges occur when they've kind of outgrown maybe everybody they've known and personally hired to now they've got a little more robust organization?
As far as who they need to hire next within their organization?
Right. Like what kind of growing pains do they typically have when they've kind of outgrown, usually when you start a business, you're hiring people a little bit or you've gotten to know. But when you get to the 50 to 100 mark, now you may not know every employee that personally or as well. And then a lot of new folks are coming in and you got to really get them bought into the culture and the why and the mission and all that other good stuff that it's a different kind of animal at that point, and you might need help in kind of managing your human capital when you get to that size.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no question that it transforms and changes and morphoses as you grow as a business. Usually things become a little bit more formalized than when you're smaller, a little bit more standard operating procedures and that, probably a little bit more robust employee handbook, that sort of thing. But absolutely, you mentioned company culture, and that's a big part of it. I firmly believe, even though when you have only a couple employees, if your plan is to grow, is to establish and define what kind of culture you want to have. Because if you don't do that, I promise you one will evolve on its own. And it may not be the one that you want it to be. And if you have to try to correct that, it's a lot harder than if you had already established it and it just kind of grew and developed as the company was growing in the direction that you wanted. With more employees, when you have more employees, sometimes there's you'll probably have more employee relations problems and issues. And so that's when it's really important to have strong managers and leaders that understand how to, manage their employees appropriately, so that you can minimize those issues and concerns and kind of take care of them in the very beginning before they get too large and create too many issues for everyone involved.
Now, you've used the word leadership several times. Is that really kind of your sweet spot in helping leaders either become better leaders or identifying up-and-coming leaders and helping them grow into their role as a leader?
Yes, I really enjoy working with developing leaders and making them as strong as they can. I think, Lee, we've all had a bad manager in our career, and I would like to see as few of those in the world as be, because as you know, when you're working with a difficult or a hard manager, it can affect your whole life. So not only your job, when you're at your job, but when you're home as well. And I don't want that for the manager or the leader. I don't want that for the employee. And I think it, obviously it hurts the organization. And I want the organization to be profitable. So everybody has more financial and time freedom, to be honest with you. So very passionate about it. I just, as being in human resources for 20 years, I saw a lot of missed opportunities. I saw a lot of people not getting it right, and just would like to help do my part in changing that in any way that I can.
Now, if there's an executive out there, what are some symptoms of a poor leader that they might have on the team? Are there some breadcrumbs that people who aren't kind of getting it done in terms of leadership are leaving, so that you can identify them and help coach them up?
Yeah, so one of the things I think that, managers, leaders, executives get extremely busy. And I think sometimes because of that, they choose to take shortcuts that serve in the moment, but not for the long term. And what I mean by that, for example, is, instead of addressing someone after a meeting, they do it right in the meeting. Now, everybody, if we did a pop quiz, everybody would know that's not the right thing to do. But I'm going to guess everybody has been in a meeting when a leader inappropriately criticized or put somebody down. And again, I think part of that is two things. Again, it saves time to just do it and get it done right there. But it also, they justify why they did it. Sometimes I see people when they get to be leaders, they're fine. They won't have a problem with that. They don't mind that I talk to them like that. And having also had employees in my office as an HR professional, I know it does matter to them and it does affect them. So, just kind of looking at the way that they manage and the way that they handle their employees and how much communication they have with their employees and keeping them up to date. Because if you don't, they'll fill in the holes. They'll make up things and they'll get concerned in that. So I'm a big proponent for really almost over communicating, that you can't communicate enough with your employees on, what's going on with changes and that sort of thing. So those are just a couple of examples of some things that, I can come in and coach executives or leaders on to try to help them have a better relationship with their employees, which again is going to help the organization. It's just going to be a win-win for everybody.
Now, did the pandemic and the forcing folks to work remotely, did that impact your business?
Yes, it did, Lee. I'm going to be honestly. I've had my business for about 2 years. And so I started in May of 19. So I had started my business in about 9 or 10 months into it. The pandemic came around. And so obviously didn't have the opportunity to do some of the networking face-to-face that I would have liked to have. But I think we're on the upswing, and I think we're at least going to go back to a hybrid where, there's still going to be some Zoom and Zoom networking in that, but I do think there's going to be some opportunities to get in front of people and shake their hand and get to meet them. So, and I'm looking forward to that.
Now, was there any of your clients that had to move to a remote environment have challenges of keeping their employees engaged and maybe having some leadership issues because they weren't face-to-face anymore and they were having to deal with issues and deal with people remotely?
Yeah, I mean, there was some of that because it is different to manage somebody remotely. However, I'm fortunate enough in that even before the pandemic, I had previously worked in an environment where we had employees all over the United States and that had a lot of managers that were managing their employees remotely. So I had some kind of things that I could help with. Again, that goes back to that communication, and you got to trust them. It's a little bit, it's a different. It takes a little bit to not see everybody and see exactly what they're doing, and for their to grow and develop that trust. And some of that just takes time.
Yeah, and I think that something that has been missing with the work from home is those I like to call them collisions, or that serendipity where you run into somebody and then you miss those opportunities for those accidental communications to, ask a question real quick, or to, look over someone's shoulder as they're doing something. You miss that, and it's hard to replicate that in a virtual environment.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. And that's why one of the reasons it's good to have, maybe weekly, bi-weekly, whatever works for the dynamics of your organization and what you're working on, is to at least get together every once in a while. It's still not going to be the same as what you're talking about, but at least there's kind of that opportunity to be sitting around in a Zoom room, I guess, and being able to kind of express some things that have been going on, or just to share some things in that. But yes, as you said, it's definitely different.
Now, earlier you mentioned that corporate culture, company culture is something that's going to happen whether you put attention to it or not. Whether you're trying to be mindful about it or not, a culture is going to happen. Do you have any advice for folks that are trying to have a positive culture and one that's productive? Is there some do's and don'ts when it comes to kind of orchestrating or architecting a culture?
Sure. Well, number one, I think you need to first decide, what do you want it to look like? And is there someone or some culture that maybe you can model that you've seen work well? Lee, I don't know if you ever, you go into a place and there's just a different feel to it. You get greeted and everybody's smiling, and, it's upbeat and that. And if you're like, what, that's what I want. Maybe you even talk to the owner and say, what did you do to develop this? I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with who you hire it, and, hiring for attitude and having a positive outlook and that sort of thing, not always just for their skill set. But, and then again, on the opposite side of things, you've walked in and you don't, nobody's there or that to greet you. So you just need to somewhat look at those. I mean, one of the extremes is everybody looks at, Google and them having their pods and whiteboards that they can work on in the hallway, and that not everybody can have that. But, again, is that the kind of, do you want to kind of model that? Or is there some other place that you'd like to model that you've seen and again that works well?
And then communicating that true north, right? That makes things a lot easier, and decisions get made a lot faster if people know what we believe in, and this is who we are. We are this, and we're not that. The clearer you can be with some of those core values, I think that helps the culture, and that helps you identify the right fit when it comes to hiring.
Absolutely. Well, and what you want to do is, when you have a mission statement or your vision and that sort of thing, you don't want it to just be in your handbook, or even if it's put up on a wall. You've got to somehow find a way for that to become a living, breathing document, and that can look different for different organizations, but maybe it's everybody's given a t-shirt with the company logo on it, and everybody, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another example, but again, you want to make sure, and you want to make sure you stand behind it, because the worst thing you can do is have a company values that you do not practice.
Right. It has to be authentic. Like, you got to walk the walk. You can't say you believe in one thing and then behave differently, in the office.
Yes, absolutely. But again, we all know that, Lee, but it's not always practiced. And so I'm trying to I want people to know that you've got to be self-aware, and you really need to be able to be honest with yourself. And even sometimes I think it's good to do an employee survey and find out what the employees are thinking, and making sure that your perception and the employee's perception isn't different, if there maybe needs to be some adjustments made there. Maybe you think you're living by the core values, but the employees all, 80% of the employees don't. Then you need to go back and look and say, what am I communicating in a manner that comes across as though I'm not living these core values. So not always as it seems, I guess is my,
Right, and you have to be diligent. This isn't something you do once and then you're done. This is stuff you have to work on regularly.
Yes, absolutely, for sure. And, and companies evolve and grow. And so maybe those are going to, change throughout the years. Or again, if you have 10 employees versus you have 250, those might evolve and change. And I think that's okay. I think you need to look at them every once in a while and say, do these still fit? And do we need to make some, changes or adjustment? I'm also a big believer in involving the employees. I have a saying where that if there's no involvement, there's no commitment. So if you can really involve the employees in some of those decision making, I think that they're going to stand behind it a lot more and be more supportive of those of the company's mission and goals and values in that.
Now, when you're working with a client, what is typically the point of engagement that occurs first? Is there a typical reason that people bring you in? Is it that they've just maybe grew to a certain level, or something happened in the organization? Maybe a key leader left or a key leader joined. What is your typical first point of engagement with a new client?
Well, usually, I'm hoping that I'm a problem solver and that I'm able to solve any kind of issues or concerns that they're having. I mean, I don't specialize in everything, but they may be having something going on that they haven't been able to figure out for themselves, or they want to grow, and they don't know exactly how to do that as far as, again, bringing in the employees. And so, they'll come to me when they want to, address something that may be going on in the organization.
So then, so they come to you and they go, okay, I'm struggling in this area. What does that first conversation look like? How do you kind of make sure it's the right fit from both sides?
Sure. Well, once they present their issue or concerns with me, number one, I would definitely, if it's out of my wheelhouse, I would refer them to someone that would be a better fit for them. But if it was in my wheelhouse and something that I felt like I could have help them with, I ask a lot of questions. I mean, that's kind of the difference between coaching and consulting, but coaching is really asking a lot of questions and trying to get to, the root cause and that. But, I would want to just I talk to them and get to what's going on. And then we try to work out what's the best solution to try to fix this, make out some timelines. And then, one of my jobs is to be, hold them accountable. And so that they don't slip, or they don't, if we said we were going to have it done by this date, I try to hold them to that so that we can make that change that they're looking for. And, we can address that problem and so that they can move forward.
And coaching is one of those things that can really make a lot of change pretty rapidly. Do you mind sharing a little bit about, you don't have to name the name, but that you were able to help one of your clients increase a division's profits dramatically in a short period of time?
Yeah, and that goes back to a couple of different things with that that happened was, again, instead of fixing a problem in the moment for the moment, we really looked at, okay, what really happened here and how can we prevent this from happening in the future? So a lot of things, they're putting out a lot of fires, I guess. So it's like, let's put out the fire, of course, in that, but then let's also look what's causing all these fires, because that obviously they take a lot of time to put out those fires versus just being able to do your job. There was so we put some processes in place. Again, we looked at the root cause analysis and fixed those problems. We worked on communication, as well as emotional intelligence. Harvard Business Review has said that emotional intelligence is twice as important as IQ. So and there's a lot of studies of companies that really had a turnaround with instilling emotional intelligence. So that was one of the things we did as well to help, kind of turn things around and luckily things did and really increased their profits in a short amount of time, as you said.
Wow, they must have been blown away.
Yeah. Yeah, they were very happy.
Now, if there's an organization out there that wants to get a hold of you and speak to you or somebody on your team, what is the website?
It is consultingbyronee.com, and Ronee is spelled Ronee. It's with one N and two E's.
Well, Ronee, thank you so much for sharing your story today. You're doing important work, and we appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I will talk to you soon.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Coach the Coach Radio.